Well, welcome to the final 2 weeks of your senior math class. And so, what we're going to be doing for our final capstone project is we are going to be doing an investigation that includes basically what we've been talking about, which is limits and continuity. So, here's your problem, and you can kind of read it. It says, since 1999, the number of doctors in the U.S. healthcare system has been increasing. Now, basically, it goes along and talks about that there has to be a good ratio between doctors and nurses. Now, the number of nurses is also increasing, and we're having more nurses and doctors joining the workforce. But the problem is the number of nurses is not increasing at the same rate at which we're having doctors. Now, there is here's a little bit of information right here. Here's the number of nurses since the year 1999. You'll notice that it continues to increase, which is good, and that's what we would expect it to continue to do. We also see that the number of doctors in the U.S. is also continuing to increase. What's interesting is when you start looking at we call it the nurse to doctor ratio, where basically you'll notice that if you divide the nurses per doctor, and so you take the number of nurses divided by a number of doctors in each year, you'll notice that it started here at some number between 3.25 and got all the way down to almost 3, and now seemed to increase a little bit here at the end after 1999. But what is being said is in 1993, the World Bank World Development Report advocated that the ratio should exceed 2 to 1 and really should be more like 4 to 1. And so you'll see none of these are 4 to 1. So what we're going to do is you're going to look at a specific state, and you are going to come up with these 3 graphs. You're going to compare the ratio of nurses to doctors in that state. And I want you to make some sort of analysis on what you think is going to happen in the future. And so you're going to basically find and look at those points and come up with some sort of a regression model, which would be some sort of a line or some sort of a equation that you could use to figure out what your limit is as the years continue on. So basically, as the limit approaches infinity. So how you're going to explain that is using some sort of a written paper along with these 3 graphs. And so on that paper, I'm expecting a titled graph for each regression, accurately titled scatter plots for the nurse to doctor ratio, accurate explanations of your data and your results, basically what you think the limit's going to be, and an accurate explanation of how you obtained your results. So you're probably wondering, how do I make these graphs? Well, a couple examples of technology you could use would be Excel or Google Sheets. If you're not sure how either of those work, but you're familiar with something else, that's fine too. But you are going to want to make these graphs. Now, if you don't know how to use them, how to use that technology, you can look online. There's lots of different tutorials. Otherwise, you can talk to me as well, and I can help you. Now, remember, you're given 2 weeks to work on this final project, and so make sure you give yourself enough time and maybe don't wait until the last minute to finish it. Now, this is comparing nurses and doctors in the U.S., but you're going to be given a state. And so what I'd like you to do is I want you to pick a state that starts with the same letter as your first name or last name. Now, for me, it would be either Alex, which would be an A, so I could pick Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, or Arkansas, or I could pick R, which would be Rhode Island. Now, if your name doesn't have a letter that starts with it, for example, B, there's no B's, you can maybe pick your middle name, or honestly, you can pick just any state you'd like. But you'll have to talk about that in your thing on why you picked the state that you did. Okay? Now, here's the final project rubric. Okay, it looks like this. So it's a total of 50 points, and this is going to be an assessment. We haven't had any other assessments this quarter, so this will be your only one. So it's going to account for 60% of your final grade in the quarter. All right, so remember, accurately titled and labeled scatter plots of nurses, okay, is 5 points. Accurately titled, labeled scatter plot of doctors, another 5 points. Accurate linear regression model. If you're wondering, again, how to make a linear regression model, we can talk about that. Otherwise, you can look online as well. Accurate linear regression model for the scatter plot of doctors is superimposed on the scatter plot with a corresponding equation. A correct function that models the nurse to doctor ratio. Okay, so you got to figure out your ratio. An accurate prediction of long term. So this is where your limit comes in. And so you basically say, as your limit approaches infinity, what does it get to? All right, then I'm going to look for the analysis of your work. So make sure you explain in detail what you did. And also, finally, the last one, organized, well-written, complete sentences, demonstrates complete understanding, and looks professional. So this is a capstone project. So this is a final project. And so I do expect it to look real neat and nice. If you have any problems or questions, don't hesitate to ask or send me an email, and I'm happy to help. All right, good luck, and I'm excited to start seeing your projects.